All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me. My name is Konrad Rogoz. Welcome to This Week in Tyranny, episode 136, here on Sunday, July 13th, 2025. It's 136. It's quite the streak. I used to wonder how long I'll be able to keep it up, right? How many episodes I'll do. And now that I'm here, it's the easiest thing in the world to do this. It takes me less and less time all the time. And it actually does just get easier, even though life throws curveballs at you, right? And I actually know now that I'm going to do this show all my life, every week, until the week that I'm physically not able to. That day is going to come eventually. But that will be the reason that I don't do my show. And I like that challenge. But it's not even much of a challenge. But I like that, making that proclamation and that vow. It's like a mixed martial arts tournament. You have to just survive and show up. It's not always the best man wins when it comes to a tournament. Sometimes, the guy who wins cannot continue anymore, and the guy who lost moves on to the next round because he is able to continue. So it's really about being the last man standing. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how you do it. It's not about style points. Like if you barely scrape through to the next round, if your opponent gets injured, or if you win by low blow. It's just about making it and showing up next week. There's really something to be said for that. So I say that to say this. I'm just going to restate what This Week in Tyranny has been, because it kind of changes. It used to be, if tyranny is not at your doorstep, it's because there's someone in the street keeping it at bay. It used to be, I used to say it's the most hardcore news show on earth, right? Talking about the things that really are going to get blocked by the algorithm the most, right? But it hasn't been that for a bit. And if I stray from that original vision, it's for this reason. I get the sense that this message that I was giving for the longest, it's a message for an audience that no longer exists. The audience niche of anti-authoritarian American Revolution style, like enlightened simplicity and individual liberty and self-governance, that 1776 don't tread on me spirit, I think it's gone. It's not gone as a spirit within individuals. Actually, just today I was driving behind a Jeep a few hours ago that had a 1776 flag on the car. So it's not gone from everybody's mind, but as a group and a niche, it's gone. And it used to exist on the internet and talk radio and all this. I think it's gone. And that's simply due to the sheer number of content creators out there on the internet. There's so many people. Everyone has a show. Everyone has an opinion. And also the mass and intensity of new information. Just new information that you get on a daily basis, especially confusing, inaccurate, contradictory, ambiguous, and convoluted information. So there's so much. So for what I do, what I try to do, there's a visibility barrier for it. You don't even see me. The people that I need to reach, they don't even see me. There's also a time barrier, not just for me, but the listeners. So if you're going to see this video, it's going to be an hour long by the time I'm done. There's a barrier there that the people who should hear it, they probably will be watching something that's 5 minutes, 30 seconds, 10 minutes. And it's not, I'm not saying that people got a short attention span. I'm not even saying that. It's just the reality of the sheer amount of information to absorb for all of us. And there's also a resource barrier. There's a resource barrier, I need to move out soon, get a better studio and all this stuff. But all I'm saying is the game has gotten dirty, so I got to adjust to the game, because the game is last man standing. That's how I see it. So I'll give my take on Epstein, the Texas flooding, and the latest tariffs. But I'm going to touch on it very, very briefly, because these events, like every week, they're going to come and go. And most of us won't be directly affected by them. I knew that when I started this show, but back then, 2 years ago, I had the sense that the people I know, that they know the philosophy, but they're confused on the events, the day-to-day events. But now I feel like that the day-to-day events are there are too many other voices, and it's just going to be a drop in the ocean. And I don't think we're directly affected by the headlines that everyone talks about. I don't think we're directly affected by the things that are the big stories for mainstream and alternative media. I think what directly affects you is your daily practicing outlook on life. These are the foundations. And that's what I really want to share with you today. Now, let's talk about it. Story one, various new tariffs were announced. Canada, Brazil, Mexico, various new tariffs. But when you have, and we have this, court injunctions, judges blocking whatever executive orders and tariffs get done, then the dates when they become effective, okay, 30 days from now, 90 days from now, then there's a 90-day pause. All these dates are constantly shifting and switching. The pauses and asking and announcing that they want other nations to negotiate trade deals with the United States, right? That's what Trump comes out and says. We'll see if we make a deal, but if not, then the tariff is in effect. So nothing is permanent. In all this, there's a sense of impermanence and fog. There's a mist. And on top of that, either way, this is not something really that's congressional. This is not really a law. It's just a man's decision. And he has shown that his decisions are not binding and lasting. They can be reversed tomorrow. And if someone can reverse their decisions tomorrow, there is no sense in talking about it. There's no sense in talking about politics and economics and talking about somebody's whims when they can be changed in 24 hours. It's like in boxing to me. I'm going to make a lot of fighting comparisons. One guy will get to the place in a boxing match where they're really fatigued or they know they don't stand a chance to win. So a guy is in there, he's fighting for his life. He knows he can't beat this guy across from him. So what he's going to do is he's just going to hold on to his opponent. He's going to clinch. He's going to stall. He's going to spit out his mouthpiece. He's going to act like it's an accident just to buy some time so he can maybe recover and just make it to the final bell. And it's stalling, and it's commonplace in fighting because, that's what happens as fatigue makes cowards out of all of us, right? So there's only so many times that a guy's going to be able to do that before the referee is going to stop entertaining his bullshit. He's going to take a point, or he's going to wave the fight off. He's going to say basically he's not able to continue. And then the guy can throw his hands up and complain and say that was a bad result. But we all know what happened. The guy was stalling. He was done. He didn't want to fight. That kind of stalling, that's what I see happening with the tariffs and all of the different foreign policy and economic policy and even the immigration stuff that is going on in the United States. I see it as stalling. But specifically with the tariffs have become an insult to your intelligence because they're not consistent, they're not lasting, and they're actually not even verifiably in effect. At the end of the day, we don't really know what's being collected at the ports. That's the truth. Some prices have gone up a lot, some haven't. So we're condemned to discuss hypotheticals or not discuss it at all. And I see it as stalling. As a result of everything I've said, there's nothing to talk about with the tariffs. The end. Next topic. Seriously. And the next topic is that the flooding in Texas, it's over 100 people have been killed, and what else is there to say about that? First of all, my condolences. Just the reality of a tragic death of an innocent person, it's really beyond and outside the scope of a show or a YouTube video, even though we all make YouTube videos about deaths that happen. Someone I used to work with, he died this past week, so it's just it has to be almost separate from the rest of the show, right? So I'm gonna say that and offer my condolences and leave it there. Now, as to the story about the Texas flooding, well, without being too familiar with what happened, I can see it. I can already see that it has become what it has become. All these stories, they seem to become about what Trump did or what his government did or didn't do. That's what seems to happen all the time, right? It's clear and consistent that government mishandles natural disasters. That's a time and time again, no matter which administration. And not just the United States. This happens again and again. You get a natural disaster, a lot of death and suffering. That's the baseline. Well, on top of that, the more realistic statement to make about the Texas flooding, for which there are varying levels of evidence, but enough that you can say this, a fair statement would be government and military's interference and control over the weather and geoengineering is such that one can likely assume that any significant natural disaster is caused by human interference. And not to be too wordy, I'm saying that anytime you get crazy weather, you can assume that it's government and military. And I'm just saying that because of the amount, because there's a monopoly over climate control, over weather control, and there are plenty of geoengineering programs. Just the sheer number of them, and the fact that it is not as visible as like where the power plants are, right, or where the water supply is, because there's a military application to this, right? That's the story. So that's the real climate change. The real climate change is government and military control over the weather, which is not a conspiracy theory. It's just a shady area, because it is an area that just, you know, that's what it is. There's control over the weather. It's under the umbrella of the military. It's just like ammunition, weapons, you know, communications, like you know, satellite communications and the internet, which was originally military technology. So all that stuff, once it gets big enough, it's under the control of the military. And I'm not saying that this weather is even changed with good or bad intentions. That would be those would be personal opinions. I'm just making known the fact that weather modification is extensive. And obviously when it comes to weather, you'll never prove a cause. So again, this is why I don't talk about it too much. You could listen to Dane Wigington talking about Geoengineering Watch, and he has a video like every day. I don't do it because you'll never prove a cause with weather. That's my take, because the domain and range is just too large. The domain and range is the whole world, like what the whole climate, the whole weather cycle, and everything. Okay, evaporation and all of this. So you'll never be able to prove that this caused that. I don't think you will on a grand scale. So, but even though you won't prove a cause, you should begin your investigation by asking the military what they were doing there, and then what were you doing there in the Texas, in that area where the flooding was. That's what I would do. It's just like an investigation. Let's hear their alibi. There was a guy in the area, you found the dead body. Let's ask that guy that was in the area what they were doing there. Simple. Next story. Trump administration comes out and announces that Jeffrey Epstein had no client list. Of course, this is the big story, right? That there was no Epstein client list, that there was no blackmail, and that he was not killed, that he killed himself in the cell. Here's my take on this. The ridiculousness of the claim, the blatant lie of it, it's part of the cover-up. In other words, a lot of people think they're not falling for it, but you are. And here's what I mean. This claim is meant to be offensive. It's meant to be insulting and meant to be ridiculous. Maybe some people will blatantly believe the government story, but I think very few. I think most people scoff at it and they immediately argue against it. But that's still part of the game. Okay, that is the bait. To me, it's like bait. It's meant to be so egregious that everyone can make a YouTube video about it again, and all of the Trump administration could look like fools, and all the smart ones can talk about the Epstein connection to U.S. and Israeli intelligence. They could get Whitney Webb's book, like I got as a gift, and they can expose the cover-up on all that, and still, even for those people that are the most enlightened, even then, the story works as intended, because the Epstein story has a defined domain and range. There's a ceiling, that like a gatekeeping. There's a ceiling that you can unravel the conspiracy and everything, and you can find that they're lying, and you still won't get to the part we really need to talk about. So, even if you go totally opposite the official story, and say, and let's say we can prove Epstein had a client list. This is what it is. Trump was on the client list. Blackmail is involved. It is deeply intertwined with government. And Jeffrey Epstein was killed, and both wings of the government will cover up for it. Does that sound like a victory? That is still well short of the extent of the abuse and the violence that is done to children in this world, and the extent of that network of the people involved. It's not just billionaires. Epstein's trafficking ring was on the very outer edges of that structure. That structure gets really, really deep and dark. And I won't talk about it extensively for many reasons. But I would liken it to the way that a car structure is designed to give way upon impact. I saw 2 accidents on Friday. One was a 3-car on Lakeshore Drive, but everybody seemed to be okay. And the other one was a truck crashing into a bridge. It lifted the container off, and it's crazy. So, and I actually saw how this. I thought, judging by the visual, that it was a really bad crash, that people were hurt, but it just folded like the back and the front. They fold like an accordion. When an accident happens, these parts of the car, some parts, they break after a certain amount of force is exerted, after giving a certain amount of resistance. It's built to absorb and distribute the impact so that the part with the driver and the passengers stays solid. Okay, and people don't get crushed. So that's what I have to say on the matter. That's what I think is happening with the Epstein thing. I think these guys are all disposable, including Trump. They can get thrown under the bus. If they all go down, they're not even going to really reveal what is going on. They may have a limited knowledge of what is going on, but the fact that Jeffrey Epstein was removed, and he did, no matter what the circumstances of his death were, that seems to indicate that that guy knew at least enough about the ring, the inner rings. He was on the outer ring, that is clear. This guy wasn't your El Chapo that everyone thinks he is. Now, I did think it was particularly insulting to hear the president say something that I'm going to paraphrase. It's not a quote. He said, "You're asking me about that creep. You're asking me about Epstein at a time like this. You're still talking about him at a time where so many great things and so many tragic things are happening." That's what he said. So it's obviously offensive, but beyond the immediate obvious reaction to that statement, he brings up something that I really wanted to talk about. He brings up the idea of past, present, and future, and which of those matter. So Donald Trump evoked the idea of, hey, don't dwell on the past. The present is what's important, right? Let's focus on what's actually important, and that is a healthy view to have. That is a healthy response to any kind of news that are going on, right? Any kind of whatever the big talking point is, chances are it's not the thing that's actually going on right now. It's like something that happened. So it's an idea that applies in many, many contexts, but one area where it does not apply, one area where you can absolutely not let go of the past, one context in which the past is crucial, is specifically when it comes to child victims, and specifically of sexual crimes. Holding the people accountable who did that violence to them is crucial, and I didn't come up with that. I heard victims say that, like Adam Paulsteed, who I thank for their courage, who spoke out about this in the Mormon church. And I still hear him saying it, is that the pain leaves you after the people that did it are held accountable and brought to justice. And so it's not just to look back and go eye for an eye. It is something that has bearing on the present and the future. It's absolutely vital. That's where the past really matters. Justice for the victims of crimes. Not only children, but especially when the crimes are sexual and happening to children, because of the way that affects their future relationships, their future life, their self-image, like their daily. There are people that are just tortured every day because of what happened, how it is deeply tied in with like the most personal parts of you, and you just have this it's like, it's not like an act, it's something that happened to you and you move on from it. It's like something that you're reliving all the time, okay? That is not just sexual in nature, but when it is, that is where it's the most intense, right? um, yeah, I wouldn't know that from experience, but when I heard this said to me, I listened, and it clearly makes sense. This is the way it is. Now, here in this case with Donald Trump, it's not just him. The government always plays with past, present, and future like a puppeteer. They, they it's like whack-a-mole. They say they pick this one and then that one and then this one. So now they're telling you, hey, don't dwell on the past, right? They tell you not to dwell on the past. Hey, it's gone. Look at what's happening right now. But when it comes to a false flag event that happened like decades ago, then it's never forget, right? Then it's never forget. This will never happen again, right? So, and everyday people do the same thing. It's not just the government, right? Let's be fair. Like, there's a guy out there telling his girlfriend, come on, why do you keep bringing that girl up? Why are you bringing up a girl and we haven't talked in so long? You're always stuck on the past. You're dwelling on the past. And at the same time, the same guy, he will be constantly bringing up or thinking about some guy from her past and what she did to him before, and it could be 20 years in the past, and then it's different somehow, right? People do this. It's selective placement of importance on time. Time is a motherfucker of a thing to talk about, okay? It's a difficult topic. It's a intriguing topic. So this is why it's going to be a big part of this show, which we're really getting into the psychology now, the philosophy, right? A few days ago, I spoke with someone who told me their philosophy concerning time. And it's something like this. It's a paraphrase, don't get mad at me. The past, it's like it no longer exists. It already happened. It really has no bearing on reality. It happened. The present has to be excluded, really, because it cannot be pinpointed. Whenever you point to the present, it's already the past. It's a constantly shifting moment. So each moment that the past, as soon as you identify it, each present moment becomes the past. And living in the present, it would actually be just your base desires, your most immediate needs, your wishes, your wants at that given moment. So there's really not that much value in the present moment where you think of it that way. The future is really the only time to concern yourself with what you will do to make the world better, to change things, to build. Yes, it's all about the present moment, but you have to build that present moment in the future. You have to look towards the future to build your present, so to speak, right? Now, that's what this person told me. And I had to think about it, really think about it, because my philosophy has always been the past. I have a similar take on the past. I don't really, it happened, I don't discount it. I recognize it as truth, true objective events that occurred, and I learn from them, but I don't really care about the past. It's not about what happened. The future, I never really I viewed the future in a different way. I always thought that, why worry about the future? Because it's always a hypothetical. It's always a hypothetical that may happen, and I've been stuck in the future before. I've seen people get stuck in the future thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow, worrying about it, stressing out about it, and looking towards the future so much that they never end up doing anything. Right? So it's still that inaction. And I would always say all of the potential, all the power is always in the present moment. It's about what you're actually doing, what is actually going on. It's really the only time that can be said to exist. Because the past exists, of course, but it's all because of those present moments that happen. Okay? So, but when you get down to it, we don't disagree at all. It's just a different way of seeing the same thing. But then I thought about it more. I thought about this, and here's what I'll say. There are two of each. There are two sides of each, past, present, and future. You can think of the past as foundations laid. Principles, foundations, things that happen, things that matter. Okay? Very real past. But then you could think about it, that past of regrets, things not done, things that you're haunted by, things that stick with you and keep you frozen and petrified in that past moment. Um, Two different kinds of past, right? One is going to help you and one is going to hold you back. The present moment could be that living in the moment uh, kind of way of living that's not the true way, not being a spectator, not worrying about your past and your future, but actually living in the moment. We call that the flow state, right? Actually being able to act. But then that other side of the present, which um, this is the part that I really had to think about, is yeah, it is your immediate whims, needs, and desires, because that is a type of living in the moment. You could say it the same way, but that kind of present moment is just really, it is being a spectator, because you're going to follow the strongest influence at the time. You're just going to do what your if your stomach is rumbling, that's what you do, and that's it. That's all life is. Now the future, it could be that future looking and working towards new and greater achievements, but also thinking about what bad things can happen, negative outcomes. This is the negative side of the future, the kind that really robs you of your present. So originally I wanted to come out here and conclude that the present is what matters, and orienting your present towards the future. And that's the key. It's really like a marriage of your present and future. And I think that's good and worth saying, but it's not my ultimate takeaway. My ultimate takeaway is this: we got to be aware of past, present, and future in our life. Like, what context is taking place in your life? How are you applying it in your life? And are you robbing yourself? Are you borrowing from the future to do something in the present, and then when the future comes, you're going to be bankrupt? Everything occurs in the present moment, but there are two ways to view it. One is the kind that nothing ever happens, just entropy, because all there is the present moment. So all that's going to happen is the sum and product of the forces acting on you at the time. That's kind of the entropy way. And the other is the present moment of the present working towards something, towards the future. Even if it's reading history, you could be literally looking at the past, or reading a book, right? A novel is like something that somebody wrote one time and it's there in the past. But really it isn't, because you can be reading that and you're reading it towards something, you're co-creating at that point, right? You're looking forward with that. So it's about the orientation of what direction you're pointing to. So is it the past that reminds you of your failures, or remembrance of wrongs that need to be made right? Because I'm all about that. I'm all about the past. I don't let go of the past. I remember what the government did. I remember what regular people did back in the day that needs to be made right. So I won't let them off the hook. The people who have betrayed and lied to people, like politicians, that past needs to be remembered. And it should inform us whether or not you will come back like a puppy and be ordered around and taken on a ride again, and beaten and told to go in the corner and vote again, because that's what happens. People have no respect for the past. Like people scam their listeners, their viewers, right? All these celebrity influencers, they'll do their crypto scams, and then like 2 weeks later, people will get scammed again by them, even though they have a reputation for being scammers. There's a lack of a reputation for really for time for the past. So there's that. Now the present moment, is it that present moment that keeps you taking the past path of least resistance? Because that's what happens in nature. That's why entropy runs its course. And nature doesn't build skyscrapers, because it's the present moment, and it follows the path of least resistance. So the desire that is the strongest at the time is going to be the one you follow. In other words, that's being dependent on the influence of your environment. Or that's one way of thinking about the present. The other is the kind that is the flow state, that is constantly keeping you ready and open to act and respond, actually being there and paying attention to what's in front of you. In athletic competition, it's called the flow state. It's really just to focus on what is being done. Done by you and not to you. So actually it is freedom from the influences of the environment. And now the future, is it the future that may or may not happen, the hypothetical future, potential effects of actions that we can't even fully verify, like the tariffs, whether the tariffs are going to take effect or not? That is the future that people are stuck in. Or is it the future that you talk about, think about, but don't take steps towards? That is also a future that holds you back, right? I'm going to do this. The wishful future. One day I will. One day I'll do this, right? That's another one that people get stuck in. But the future that we really need to be in is the future that you will build. The change that you will bring into existence. It's not tomorrow I will. It's today I will. It almost seems to overlap with the present, because it is the present, but orienting toward the future. That's how you build it. Now, ultimately, like I said, I'm not going one or the other. I think both directions of the view are valuable, looking towards the past and looking towards the future. And I think they should be married to one another. That's the big takeaway from here. Okay, that's the big golden idea here that I figured out. The reason I even am who I am today, all the not the bad things, but the good things. The reason I am who I am and where I came from, it's consistency and exploration. So consistency would be really like your past. So I'm doing show 136, right? It is kind of like an ego thing. I can fall back on the things that I have done. I am Konrad, this guy who has done all these things, and I can be proud of that. I have a structure that I have built and I can fall back on, and that protects me, that gives me a sense of value of self, right? So that's really thinking towards the past. It is very ego oriented, but the consistency is just a respect for objectivity, for continuity. So that is the looking towards the past that I've always valued, and I'm not throwing it away, but I'm just placing more value on the exploration part. And I realized that a big part of me surviving the things that I've survived and coming out here and doing things like this, I'm doing Soundpath in about 7 weeks from now, so I'm excited about that. I'm making all this music. I got good people around me, great people around me. It's exploration. It's just because I wanted to try these new things. So it's totally being open to the future, the unknown, and having to kind of take a leap and take a chance and do something that you may fail at, going to meet the uncomfortable, being comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's the two: consistency and exploration. Don't you wish those were the political parties? Like, the right wing, the conservatives, are supposed to represent consistency. There's a more of a respect for tradition, more focused on the past, the established way, walking the path that is traveled and dependable, right? And then the other wing should be the exploration party, and isn't that what the liberal party should be more like? To go towards new things, changing that path, and kind of taking a new way, taking a risk, being progressive, right? Working towards progress to actually make something new happen, and questioning the old ways, rebelling against the old ways. That's looking toward the future. But we don't really have that on our political spectrum. And what that really is to me is the adult and the child, and we have both within us. The adult that looks towards the past and has all that experience, has all those trials and tribulations, and then the child, kind of the innocence and openness to go towards, to just walk out into the world fully trusting that they can do whatever they put their mind to. So I've had my eyes open to looking forward and outward. It's just a change of perspective, right? I've always been heavily focused on the self. I've talked about the self, looking inward, doing the shadow work to make yourself better, to solve all of the harmful patterns within us that clouds our worldview and makes us mistreat others, all of that stuff, right? About the self, addressing all the problems to make you better. But here's the problem with it. I've realized the problem with my past rhetoric. Talking about the self and being selfish, it doesn't resonate with everyone. Um, because when I say I'm selfish, I'm talking about like I'm going to do the right thing no matter what anybody says. Because at the end of the day, I only trust my estimation of things, and it doesn't matter if everybody else is doing something that's wrong. I'm not going to do something that's wrong because I value myself. It works, right? But a lot of people don't feel that way, and that's fine. Inward vision also is tough because it often collapses the person. So when we say someone is self-aware, we mean it positively, but when we say somebody's self-conscious, then it's not so positive anymore, right? But they're really the same thing. So when you scrutinize yourself, you start taking a million pictures of yourself or record yourself all day, you're going to find a lot of things that you don't like. So being focused on yourself and what you look like, what you come across like, how everyone is seeing you, it's definitely a weight that can collapse it could collapse you. So we could say taking care of yourself, and that means something completely different to different people. And I've had my eyes open this week on just a whole new perspective of this. Rather than thinking of myself as this centralized unit of nature, I've even said this very recently, that rights come from the self and nobody else. I haven't changed that, but although I fully believe in asserting the self, instead of thinking of me as as that kind of a central focus, I've been thinking of myself as a decentralized force of nature. And in all spiritual traditions that exist, if I'm taken out here, I'm not gone. So I'm not worried about death or any kind of hardships that may come upon me in the future. Thinking of yourself as a decentralized force of nature, that's way harder to shut down. It's way harder to shut down a decentralized network than a central server. Right? So I value my past. I have an ego. It doesn't rule me. I also have an id. I have the present moment selfish desires, and I don't hold them all back. But I don't let them run wild either. I also have a super ego, which means I have that ideal that I want to make happen, the future that I want to manifest. But I don't let that future cripple me and determine whether or not I enjoy my day right now. So I'm not saying I've been my whole life been that way and succeeded at that, but I'm just saying the past few days I've had a nice past few days because of that, thinking about this. And to me, it's how I'll define this. I'll call it this. It's decentralized living in time, and also in space. The fluidity between sense of self and sense of the world, looking inward and outward, that's decentralized living in space. So we need to have a decentralized living in space and a decentralized living in time, and that keeps you from getting stuck and really being a healthy self. Because you've got a balance and a flow between past, present, and future, and you don't neglect either of those. That didn't come out of the Hermetica. That didn't come out of the Emerald Tablets or anything. You don't even need to go read the Secret Teachings of All Ages. I guess you just need to talk to some exceptional people, listen with openness, and building on it with your own thoughts. Most crucially, you have to contribute something of yourself on top of it. That's the show. That's the takeaway. That's the conclusion. Yeah, that's it. Speaks for itself. Thank you so much. You guys are great. I am going to be at Soundpath 25. It's going to be amazing. I've got a meeting with the organizers soon. We're going to talk about what's going on, and we got more and more names, and I'm doing more and more music because I want to give a live performance, even though I'm not a professional full-time musician. Hey, I'm not a professional full-time philosopher anyway, but we look towards the future and we are willing to explore the uncomfortable without fear of failure, right? So thanks everyone. I'll see you next week.